I used to be out in Rayla. I grew up in the Pink Toothbrush.
Yeah, same.
That was my
every Friday, Saturday. Yeah,
every Friday, Saturday.
Yeah.
Is this folklore or is this true? Did they film a porno in the Pink Toothbrush? I've heard that as rumour.
I've never heard that, but it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Because when it was crocs, we're talking about when they actually
back
had
in the
like
day,
an alligator or a crocodile in a tank in there.
Yeah,
you can Google that for anyone that's interested.
Yes.
Jobsworth, Season 2, Episode 5, Viva, Vino Vero. Welcome to the 5th episode of Jobsworth Season 2. My guest this time around is Jaime Fernandez, owner of the award-winning Vino Vero, a Leon Sea-based bottle shop with a focus on organic wine made as simply as possible. I met Jaime when he and his wife Holly acquired Vino Vero from two of my previous guests, Charlie and Sam Brown. In this episode, we talk about the events that led them to take over the business and the reality of transitioning from a stable job in the insurance sector to running a shop in the middle of a pandemic. Jaime is a dad to two young children, and deciding to be his own boss with all the risks and challenges that brings wasn't easy. But with the support of his wife and his family, he made the bold decision to walk away from a successful career to a life of entrepreneurship, prioritising his own well-being and working to find that elusive work-life balance. We discuss whether he's any closer to achieving it. Jaime's passion for wine developed well before he started working in the sector full-time, and he shares some interesting insights into what it was like running a side hustle in a space he was passionate about, and one that would ultimately bring him into the same orbit as Charlie and Sam. In this episode, we also explore what it was like taking over the reins of a successful and well-loved business, how the existing client base and staff reacted to the new regime, and what it's like working alongside your partner. So, without further ado, let me introduce you to one half of the dynamic duo running one of the best loved places in Leon Sea. Obviously, they sell alcohol, Jaime Fernandez. So, there is an opening tradition to the podcast, which is this question. When you were younger, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I didn't really have the thing I wanted to be. I never really had a thing. But being a footballer, I was obviously when I was 5, 6, 7 years old, that's what I wanted to be.
Yeah.
But in terms of actual realistic ideas of a profession, I didn't really have one.
Well, it's fine. I mean, that question kind of taps into anything. Like, if it was a footballer, one of the a couple of the guests in season 1 said footballer, and I get it. Yeah,
I was obsessed with football. Still am. I mean,
who do you support?
West Ham.
Okay, cool. I mean, the great thing is I'm not a massive football fan, so this won't trail off into football chat. But it's always interesting.
No, that's fine. That's fine with me. But yeah, when I was younger, I played football like twice a week, so I was 3 times a week. And then as I grew up, following West Ham, I used to go to all the home games, most of the away games. So I had a good few years going to most West Ham games, home and away. So that was quite a big part of me growing up. But that was the only thing I really wanted to do as a profession.
Okay.
But I knew realistically I was never good enough, and I had trials at Norwich, and that ended after about 2 months. And it was never something that was actually realistic or something that
I mean, trials at Norwich, though, you go a hell of a lot further than most people might do that say they want to be a footballer. So there was something within your reach. At what age do you think you start to realise that's not a goal that I'm going to reach?
I think getting towards like 15, 16, if you haven't had if you're not in some sort of youth set up by then, you've probably got no chance. But,
right, okay.
But yeah, it was good fun, but it was just one of the things. But when you play with other kids your age at that level, and you see how far behind you are, I knew pretty quickly after those trials that I wouldn't. And you got to really want it, right? When you get older, you got to sacrifice quite a bit. And I
think I was talking about my own experience with a couple of guests last season about that age at secondary school, sort of 14, 15. And if I had a couple of opportunities to do more with sport than I ended up doing, which is fuck all. Like, I've done nothing with sport in my life past the age of secondary school. And I think you either need to be very focused on that as a path, or you need a really pushy parent behind you that's getting you out of bed every morning, telling you not to go out and start drinking, telling you to dump girlfriends, all these things to try and drive you down that path. I think if you reverse engineer the careers of people who have done really well in sport, they may have had someone in their ear talking to you about that kind of thing.
100%, yeah.
Okay, I don't know much about your sort of earlier career, apart from what I found on LinkedIn. So it seems to be heavily insurance. Is that fair? Insurance, finance, that kind of world. So can you give me? You mentioned already where you went to school. So Tommy Moore was secondary school.
So Tommy Moore Secondary School, and then I did sixth form at Tommy Moore's as well.
Yep.
And that's at the point where I started getting into media studies.
Okay.
So both my parents worked in finance. So my dad works at Santander. My mum works at various places doing credit control. So I sort of did the opposite to that route and really enjoyed doing the media studies at GCSE. Took it A-level, done really well, and then applied for university to do media studies as well.
Oh, nice.
So I did 3 years at University of East London doing media studies. But I think doing the 2 years GCSE, 2 years A-level, 3 years degree, by that point, I'd just given up on media studies, and I'd done a couple of work experience at Saatchi, like quite
nice,
quite an iconic advertising company in London. But yeah, I walked out after a day and a half, I think.
Why was that?
I realised that the people in that industry, the work involved, just wasn't for me at all.
Right.
So yeah, I did a day, went back for the second day at lunch. I just went out for lunch.
Literally scarpered as well, never came back.
Never went back. No, went out for lunch, never came back. Looking back, it's a completely arsey thing to do.
How old were you then? Early 20s?
Yeah, 20, 21.
I would have done it. I would have done stuff like that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I got my free lunch tokens and went. So, yeah.
Day and a half. No, but I think, again, that follows a very common trend on the back of that question, like, what did you want to do when you grew up? And a lot of people have these romanticized views of what life is going to be like if you choose to go down one route, and you only have to experience it for sometimes longer than a day and a half, but you just get that feeling that that's not for me, and it's better for it to happen then than later down the line.
I didn't know, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I sort of did my media degree, started applying for jobs as like runners or anything to get in media, and bearing in mind my university class, I think I was one of maybe 110 students in my class.
Right.
So the amount of competition you had for any job that appeared in media studies.
And that's just your class?
Exactly, yeah, just my class. So that's just one university class. So I just got really disillusioned, and I think there's this assumption that you get a degree and you can walk into a 35 grand a year job, and that just wasn't the reality, particularly in media studies where there was so much demand, so many people available. I mean, I was getting offered like 10 grand a year jobs in London. So when you take off your travel getting into that job, you're not left with a lot after that. So
yeah, no, definitely.
I got disillusioned by the whole industry, really. And that's when I sort of moved into just getting a job locally, getting some money. Yeah. And it just happened to be for an insurance company. Yeah. And that's where it sort of progressed from there, really.
Yeah. So you fell into it like a lot of people do.
It's unintentional. The money was good. The people were nice. Yeah. The job wasn't relatively difficult. Yeah. And usually when I get into something, I try to make the best out of it that I can by developing, and I ended up taking my insurance exams, so really focused on doing that, moving up, and that was, I started off in Chelmsford at Royal and Sun Alliance, and then 20 years later I was still working in insurance. So it's sort of those unintentional things that just spiraled.
When you look at the career guidance that you would have had at the time, maybe college, I don't know if it existed, I mean you a couple of years older than me, but the career guidance that I got at college doing my A-levels were kind of like, there were limited options. And I think finance or insurance or basically corporate world or finance world in London was one of those ones that you kind of pushed towards. Yeah. You didn't have the exposure to all of the possible opportunities that you've got. I think that hopefully there's some career guidance around now. Do you feel like you almost fell, do you think that was kind of like I don't know, and it's no disrespect to the fact you did it, but it's kind of like one of those core routes that a lot of people might have chosen out of college or been forced to go down.
I think a lot of people follow what their parents do as well. So most parents, say in Essex, will generally work in that industry as well, or those sort of industries. So back in those days, I mean, if you look at now, the ways you can earn money, like the different methods in which you can do that with the internet and things, is massively different to what we had, the options we had like 20, 25 years ago. So I think the options you had, and if you wanted to earn money, being so close to London was the only option you really had. Yeah. So most kids just fell into it, and there was a lot of demand for younger people getting in the industry. So yes, it was a difficult one because you never really had that option unless your parents worked in a particular field, or you wanted to be a teacher or a doctor or a dentist. Those those industries. So yeah,
I think it's a question I think about a lot because we've both got kids, and your kids again. How old are your kids?
7 and 4.
7 and 4. Okay, so I've got a 5 and a 2-year-old, so similar kind of ages.
Gaps, yeah.
And I think about what the world of work's going to look like for them and what guidance they're going to get. And my mum was a self-employed artist, and at the time I was like, that's not a route I can go down. You need a talent to be able to do that too. But yeah, there wasn't many routes that I think that we were given that access to.
No,
I want to try and open my kids' eyes as much as I can to it's just so much out there, isn't there, really?
Yeah, it's massive, yeah.
So I think in my mind, I've got a responsibility to try and showcase as much as I can. But by the time they're working, the machines might have taken over. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think now you can go for options of choosing jobs that you actually enjoy. Back in those days, it didn't matter if you enjoyed it or not. You just did it to get money.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that was it. It was getting on the ladder, wasn't it?
Yeah, you had to get on the ladder. You had to find some way to earn some money, and you had to try and build a career, because that's what you were told you had to do, is build this career. Like, you get a job and you move your way up gradually, and you stay in that job forever.
Yes.
And then that's life.
Yeah.
But it's very different now. You can chop and change. You can try different things. There are different ways of earning money that aren't as conventional as they used to be.
Yeah.
And it's all about what you actually want to do as well, and what you enjoy doing, which is a nice position to be in. We didn't have that.
Yeah, it always makes me feel really old when we talk like this, but it's true. Like, generationally, there has been a shift, and I think people in a much, it's still challenging, but people have a lot more options now. There's a lot more information around the routes that they can take. All right, so you did 20 years in insurance.
Near enough, yeah.
Are you still doing insurance work now?
I still do a bit of consulting.
You dabble?
Yeah. I do a bit. Never full-time and never permanent, but I do a bit, because there is a bit of a shortfall since COVID. And what I did was a bit niche, and the demand for people is quite high at the moment. So I do a bit.
Yeah, cool.
But never in terms of affecting what I do with the business.
Yeah.
That's really important, but it's nice to have the option and the financial benefit of doing part-time contract work. So
so you've got a couple of decades in the insurance space, and then so talk to me then, what inspires you to buy a wine shop, or specifically Vino Vero? Or was it you were on the market for wine? What is the story behind that?
Yeah, so I'd started getting interested in wine probably about 4 years before we took over, so 2016, I guess. And that was just the off chance of doing a wine course in London. So there's the London Wine School, the Wine and Spirit Education Trust, and I'd booked an evening class to do the level 1.
Yep.
And it's just sort of spiraled from there, really. Because I'd always been interested in wine. My family are from a wine region in Spain, so that's always been part of like our family life, like drinking wine at lunch and dinner. That was just the norm.
Yeah.
But I'd never really known much about wine.
Other than you like the taste of it. Yeah. It's like a family thing.
It's a family thing. I knew a couple of grapes and a couple of wine regions just from having that as a normal family part of our life. So I did the wine course just out of interest, did level 1, loved it, did level 2, loved it even more. Then you get to level 3, which is a bit more intense in terms of what you need to learn and the exam process. So it was a longer, like 3-4 month period of studying. Then the exam was like essay questions and a blind tasting.
Oh wow!
So like a 4-hour exam. So it was quite intense.
So by that time, it's whittling out people that are kind of serious enough about it. That's the investment,
exactly,
isn't it?
Yeah. So obviously the cost goes up. The investment for study, tasting wise, is a lot higher. And I just got obsessed from there really, and just sort of spiraled from that. And I set up a blog, doing a lot of writing for American companies and stuff. So
this is all whilst you're still working.
All whilst I'm still working. Yes, I was still working in the industry, and we were going through some changes in the company I was at the time. So they'd just been bought by a big American firm, and they got bought again a year later by a big French firm. So I'd started to lose a lot of passion and interest in the insurance side.
Right.
And it was sort of like that, like the wine stuff was getting really interesting. I was going to visit winemakers, writing articles for American online publications.
Wow.
I just really enjoyed it. And And then I decided, I got to a point in insurance where I really wasn't enjoying working for a huge, so it ended up being AXA buying our company.
Okay.
So we turned, when I joined the company in 2008, I think there was maybe 800 people in our office. So it was
still sizable, isn't it?
Sizable company, but the biggest Lloyd's syndicate in the market. And then from that, in the space of 8 to 10 years, we'd gone from 800 to however many million work at AXA.
It's a huge cultural shift, isn't it? Being
Massive,
part of that.
Huge. And that's when I really started thinking about what I wanted to actually do, whether this was the right thing for me to do. But at that point, obviously, I had a mortgage. Yeah. I had one child and another on the way, maybe. And then I thought, right, I'm going to move company. I'll go to a smaller company, see if it changes my mentality. And at that point, I wasn't senior, but I was management level. So I had a team reporting to me, and I moved to a bigger job where I reported to the COO. I had to build a team of 8 people. So there's a lot of pressure, and I just hated it.
Right.
And that's the point where it sort of clicked that I didn't want to do that anymore, and I needed to work around a way of doing something different. And because I enjoyed the wine thing so much, I thought, right, let's focus on that in my part-time and look if I can build it on that, and then gradually wean away from insurance. So we set up a company doing local wine tastings. So we set up Copper Wine, which was a part-time thing where I'd go from different locations in Essex and do pop-up wine tastings. This is what
I remember now. Yeah, I forgot about the Copper Wine as its own thing before Vino Vero. Right, yeah.
And that's how. And when I was studying, taking my exams, that's when I got to meet Sam and Charlie at Vino Vero. So I'd get a lot of my wines from the shop to test for my exams. So we'd have to do a lot of tasting at home, and there's a lot of onus on you to get bottles, try different styles, different grapes. So I got to know Sam and Charlie really well just from buying wine from them, really. And then when I started Copper Wine, they did some wholesale work, so I'd get some wholesale wines from them as well. So it became more of a working arrangement with them as well before that point.
But it was all wine that brought you together. You wouldn't, unless there was that crossover, that you wouldn't have met.
Not at all.
Not in the same circles. Yeah.
No, not at all. So Copper Wine went really well. But obviously, it was a once, twice a month sort of thing.
So we're talking like it's a perfect example of a side hustle at this stage. It's got
100%. Yeah.
Okay, right.
Yeah. It was like it was a passion, but I didn't know if I could turn it into a career, or an actual job where I can earn enough money to support the family.
Had you had your second child by then?
So I had my second. Yes. So at the start of my new job, I had the second, and another big factor in it obviously was that because this job was a lot more senior, I was leaving work at sort of 6 a.m, leaving the house at 6 a.m, 6:30, getting home at 8.
Yeah, so you're just missing.
I just never, like my summer, I found that first 6 months, I didn't see him, which was like the worst feeling.
Yeah.
But when you're in that position, you don't really think about it too much because you can't do anything about it. There's no alternative. The working from home thing wasn't even really an option back then.
Yeah, because this is pre-pandemic. The doors are closed for that. Yeah.
You come to the office, you get in early, you get home late, you do your job, and if you have to do extra, that's just part and parcel of what it is. It was frustrating because I knew I wanted to get into something else, but I was stuck doing something that I had to do because the money was so good, and we had a young family and mortgage and things. And
I think they call it golden handcuffs, don't they? Sometimes you just, through hard graft and time served, you get to a point where you sit there, and that exit strategy is hard because you build up a lifestyle that's reliant on the money and the income that you bring in,
100%.
And it's a tough balance to get right, because also there's so much more exposure on this subject now, but like if you burn out and it starts to really impact you negatively from a mental health perspective, you're going to be no good to anyone.
No.
Yeah.
And that's the point it sort of reached, really, and I knew I had to get out, and gradually moving Copper Wine was the plan. So in January 2020, we'd planned to launch an online web store for Copper Wine. So despite doing these occasional events and trade fairs and vegan fairs and selling wine however we could, we decided to focus on online, get some like rare, interesting, funkier wines, and then have this online store to sell around the UK. So January 2022, we launched it, and then March 2020, COVID hit, which for us was an amazing thing because everyone was at home, everyone was buying stuff online, everyone was trying new wines. That's when that sort of peak of people trying weird, interesting.
Well, we had nothing else to do, Jamie. So
the weather was amazing. Everyone was just getting pissed every day.
What a time to be alive! Yeah,
so, with our walk in the sunshine. In March.
It's easy to be glib, and it's obviously a real challenging time. But there were some real positives that came from that, I think.
Yeah, 100%.
Not just copper wines.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, we done really well out of it, but
no, there was definitely more. It was just more simple. There was less to think about, wasn't there?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be doing delivery. I'd be working from home, trying to make sure the team I was managing could operate from home, because at that point no one works at home.
Yeah.
So for the first sort of 4 weeks of being in that lockdown period, it was just me firefighting, making sure that everyone had what they needed to work from home. So it was like daily conference calls with the whole team. It was a lot
of counselling, I guess, for you as a people leader. You're dealing with people's personal stuff.
Yeah, and then because the shop went so well. And before that point, I'd already spoken to Sam and Charlie had approached me about taking over Vino Vero. They'd known at that point, must have been 2019.
Yeah.
They knew then that they were looking to have more of a nomadic life and travel around. So they'd approached me about taking over, and it wasn't the right time. I was gradually building Copper Wine, and it was just too soon. It just didn't work. I looked at it. It didn't work, so I'd left it. And then when COVID hit, we then sort of restarted discussions again. And we're in lockdown, I'm working, but I'm spending more time with the kids because I was at home, so I could take those breaks. I could see the kids a lot more. And I just realised then that life was too short to be traipsing up and down to London every day and doing something I didn't really have a passion for.
Yeah.
And despite the fact, it earned the money it did, and it gave us a lifestyle and a home and everything else. It just wasn't what I wanted to do.
I think I had it described as by a client to me as like an extended Christmas break. The pandemic, in that the gap between Christmas and New Year tends to be where people focus on, am I going back into the next year doing the same thing again?
Yeah.
And we had months of it. We had months of sitting there mulling it all over. Is the life that I was living, the job that I was doing, the one that I want to go back to?
Yeah.
And it sounds like you went for a similar kind of thought process.
100%.
You're on that journey already, but
I think I was 80% there as it was, and COVID just tipped it over the edge.
Yeah.
And I remember having conversations with the COO at the company saying, we had like a group meeting saying, like, we need to flag up people who are going to potentially leave as a result of COVID, because we knew that there was some older people that might just take it as an excuse to say, right, I'm done. That's
I think it happened in a lot of industries.
So we had these meetings where we were trying to flag employees up that we think might jump as a result of it. And then I think that meeting might just triggered, like, I'm one of those people, but I couldn't actually say
it's like, I want to put my hand up.
Yeah, I can't say it to my own boss that it might be me.
Yeah.
But at that point, I wasn't really in a financial position to leave it all and then just take up either Copper Wine or Vino Vero, because at that point I hadn't decided whether I was going to continue with Copper Wine and try and get my own retail space and grow the business, or whether I wanted to go towards Vino Vero and have the safer option of having an established customer base, all these like allocation wines that they had, have been able to continue that. Do I want to do that or build something fresh? And in my head, I wanted to carry on Copper Wine, start my own thing and develop that. But reality wise, I knew that I needed to go the Vino Vero route because that was more stable and had less risk. But either way, I couldn't really focus on that 100% of the time, because I knew it might not give me enough money, or it might not be consistent cash flow. So I just decided, I had a chat with my parents, and they were like, you're not happy, just quit. My dad had his own business doing some freelance finance work. He's like, come work with me for a bit, do that part-time and do the shop part-time.
Nice.
And just see. So a combination of my wife basically saying that I had to do it and it's a passion, you never forgive yourself if you don't do it, and her supporting me, and then my parents giving me the option to work with my dad, and then my in-laws as well offering to financially help as well.
That's amazing.
I was honestly, incredibly lucky to have the support that I've got with my in-laws, my parents, and
your wife,
and Holly, and family and stuff. So I definitely wouldn't have done it and risked it without them, and I wouldn't have been able to financially afford to do it without the support they offered.
One of my questions was going to be around the support that you had, and what were people's reaction when you said you wanted to do it, but you've just answered it there. I think it's brilliant.
I think I'd starting Copper Wine and developing it, and even when I had all the events at Copper Wine and going to Rayleigh and Thorpe Bay and Leon Sea, and having all my friends and extended family turning up to these events and paying their money and buying the wine and stuff, I had a massive amount of support anyway. But then to have like in-laws and parents do what they did to get it all up and running, it's amazing. So we're really lucky, and I think I'd still be full-time insurance without those conversations we had back in 2020.
That's brilliant. I think and you've said lucky to be in a position where you're fortunate enough to have that support network, especially when it's your other half getting behind you, because that's a big, if they're against that,
there's no chance.
No, you can do it, but if you're in a strong enough relationship where there's that team and that collaboration, you want to both be pushing in the same direction. So for her to bang the drum, I was very lucky from that sense myself. When I decided to set up my own agency, I was in a very secure position. We just had our first son, and my other half knew I wasn't happy. She just said, "You have to do it, because nothing's worth sticking around for if you're just going to be completely miserable every day."
100%, No, and when you get that little niggle that you want to do something else, it's really hard to lose it until you actually do it. But it's one of those things I never would have done without that pushing and saying that we can try it, because
that's brilliant. So you made the decision, and it sounds like a strategic one. Maybe the heart was going, I want to do copper and I want to carry on building a brand, and I get that completely. But maybe the strategic head that you had on, the businessman hat, was like, okay, Vino Vero is a known entity. You don't have to go into detail, and I appreciate there's only going to be so much you can share, but the actual process of negotiating the sale of an existing business, hard, easy, smooth sailing? Does it help that you knew Charlie and Sam as well as you did, or did that make it more difficult?
It's having only bought one business, I can only go by that one experience.
Yeah, of course,
For me, it was pretty straightforward.
Yeah,
I mean, it definitely helped that we knew Sam and Charlie, and you
had a good relationship.
We were good friends with them. We had dinner and drinks with them before at our house, their house.
Okay, cool.
I'd met up with them at their place a few times.
And they're lovely human beings as well. They're genuinely lovely.
They're genuinely lovely people, very knowledgeable, and to walk into a business that knowing that I knew that they'd run it and they'd run it well, and I wouldn't be walking into a complete shit show, that was always really comforting for us. But the whole process was pretty straightforward. They had an asking price. I put forward a price that I thought was appropriate, and then we just went from there.
Yeah,
it was.
Got to start somewhere, haven't you? Both got to put something on the table before you.
And then once I said there was never any arguments. It was really it was very numbers based. Sam's comes from a background in IT and more corporate stuff as well, so he knew exactly what the benefits were of buying it or selling it from their perspective. I could only go by the numbers in the accounts, and then we just came to an agreement, and it was really straightforward. But there was a couple of little bits we had to iron out through the process, which altered the final price. But it was always really amicable. And I think where most people would feed everything through their solicitors, if we had any issues, we'd just call each other or text each other or email each other. So it was a really easy process for us.
Yeah, because you had those two routes to go down, with building your own business with your own name and no sort of legacy behind it, other than what you'd built for yourself, and then inheriting someone else's to a degree.
Yeah, the romance side of it for me was to build my own brand, but that you have to sort of get out of that headspace a little bit, and what's best for us and not just me.
Yeah,
because Vino Vero was not my business. Vino Vero was a name they had, but we adopted it and changed it based on what we would have done with Copper Wine. So it's a bit of it's a good best of both worlds scenario, really. So we had the security of knowing we had a client base, and we had these existing relationships with importers, and we could get the best prices and stuff because Sam and Charlie built a really good business. And for us, it was all about taking that and what can we do to it to A, better it, and B, make it our own. Well, that's the important bit for me.
That's what I was going to ask you about, is in acquiring someone else's business and acquiring Vino Vero. Now, I know Sam and Charlie. I used to work with Vino Vero in the previous guys.
Yeah.
So what's it like when you're inheriting that kind of legacy of clients, of name, of bricks and mortar? How do you go through that process of kind of respecting the legacy it's already got while trying to put your own stamp on it? Did you, in the nicest possible way, did you have to? Was it in your mind that you wanted to respect where Vino Vero had come from? Or did you really just want to move forward, keeping the name and putting your own signature on it?
For us, we didn't really think about it at all. We just wanted to do what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
So it was a difficult one because everyone knew Vino Vero, everyone knew what they were all about. And in the essence of what we've done, we haven't really changed much of what it was. In terms of visuals, it looks very different to what it was before.
Yeah, I remember the rebrand. I remember all the rebranding stuff. It was great.
But we didn't really think about people's perception of what the change would be. We didn't really think about other people. We just did what we wanted to do. And that was almost done blindly, not really thinking about any reaction because we just wanted to present a business of how we would have done it anyway, regardless of if it was Vino Vero, Copper Wine or any other business. So it was a weird one, and probably the best way to think about it was just to do what we wanted to do, because you tend to overthink things and think about how people are going to react to changes, and it's a really weird
tough one, isn't it? How did you get any feedback from existing customers? Did you get any feedback on the transition? I guess you might not have known if you were losing customers coming through the door or whatever, because.
I think because we took over during like a lockdown, it was such a weird period.
You weren't seeing people face to face anyway,
no,
were you, really?
When we first took over, I think they just relaxed the first. Well, we took over in October 2020, so it was.
We might have been slipping back into the next one.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because we were 7 people at the door. So we had a bench across the front door, so people could come in and point like they were at some.
I remember
that. Old school petrol station.
Exactly. Yeah.
It was just weird because I mean, for us, it was quite a good transition into the business because we didn't have loads of people coming through the door. We didn't have to worry about how everything looked. So we just had stuff everywhere. We were delivering local deliveries like every day. So we were out on the road quite a lot. And then the law was slightly relaxed over the time we were there. Then we went back. I mean, we planned to reopen the bar area. We bought loads of food and loads of cheese and meats and things. Got ready to launch, back open for the evenings, drinking in again. And then they announced the second lockdown.
I remember coming into the shop at that time, face masked up and distance between us, and you talking about it. Yeah.
The mask. We didn't recognise people, so they didn't recognise us. So the whole time we were first in there, we all had masks on.
And haircuts that we wouldn't necessarily have been proud of at that time.
Yeah, I had like some sort of Lego man haircut and a face mask on. So by the time that all relaxed...
It's a lot of baseball caps back then.
A lot of caps, a lot of masks. So you could just see like beady eyes.
Yeah, exactly.
That was pretty much it. So it's a really weird time to take over a business. But looking back now, it probably was the best time to take over because we didn't have that pressure of having people in the shop the whole time. We could pretty much relax and do local deliveries, get used to ordering stock, and then gradually get the business to the position that we wanted it to be in terms of how it looked.
Yeah. So just the chronology again, you bought the business when?
Went through in October 2020.
October 2020.
Yeah.
So, okay, discussions had started to happen at a very high level in 2019. Wasn't the right time.
Yeah,
that kind of stamp.
Yeah, early 19, I think it was. We had up in Sam and Charlie's house and had a chat. Then we looked at it; it wasn't going to work, and we didn't want to rush into anything, so we put it on hold. And then they had discussions with other people, and then end of 19, start of 20, I was having second thoughts again, and we'd launched a website in January 2020. COVID hit, and then that was when I really realised that I didn't want to be in insurance, and that's when we started discussions again, like April 2020, I guess, May 2020.
Yeah, what time to be doing
quickly.
it?
Yeah. There was nothing else to do. So.
No, exactly. You can really give it some focus. Yeah. So what do you feel like opening a business then during one of, for the high street, for, bricks and mortar businesses, do you feel like you learnt a lot as a business owner for the first time, having run like a bricks and mortar business at the very least, about resilience, about, staying strong through what can be what was for a lot of people a really challenging time?
I mean, for us, it was like one of the best times, like financially, because people were at home with spare cash, and they were buying lots of alcohol. So I know a lot of people going through a really hard time with not being able to be open, but even the pure lockdown, we were classed as essential business.
Yeah.
So we were.
They really were as well.
Yes, they were. So Sam and Charlie were out like every day delivering.
Yeah.
And then when we took over, that demand for alcohol in general and different wines and people had that extra bit of cash. They could spend £17 on a bottle rather than the usual £12 a bottle. And when you make that leap, that extra £5 is like pure quality.
Yeah,
wine.
when you multiply that as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So 5 bottles of £12 wine compared to 5 bottles of £17, £18, £19 wine is a big jump.
Yeah.
And people that took that extra bit of cash to spend it on wine, going back to those £12 bottles is quite difficult because you get used to that extra bit of quality.
Yeah.
So for Vino Vero, it was a really good, like financial wise, it was a really good time, which is hard to admit when you see so many other businesses going through like really struggling.
Yeah, it's all relative, and you can only describe your own experience.
Yeah, 100%.
In the context of the time, I do think, because there was Hopperly, which is now definitely from a bricks and mortars perspective not there anymore.
Yeah,
we
did a lot with Mark and Hopperly.
I really love Mark, and Cheryl as well. They're really
lovely,
good people.
We did a lot of stuff with them, Cop Wine, doing a lot of like joint wine boxes and beer boxes and stuff. So we did a lot.
They went for a real boom, didn't they, online wise?
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, Mark did loads of work for us and the guys there, and they were really instrumental in us like pushing our like the local awareness of us as a brand and stuff. So
yeah,
it was interesting time. Alcohol wise, and being classed as essential was a really big thing. Yeah. Otherwise, I wouldn't be open at all. So.
Well, I spoke to Dean from Mengo, a barber that owns Mengo. For anyone that hasn't listened to that episode yet, by the time this airs, but barbers were closed for 8 months with a 7-8 months with a tiny window of time where they were open in between. And we were talking about the times where he was just like, there was days where he wanted to give up and just say, this isn't working, and what's the fallback? Maybe not during a pandemic, maybe just since having the business. Have there been times where you've been tested to the point where you've just thought, this isn't worth it?
I think so. I think when you get used to working in insurance and getting paid well, and on some days you're literally doing nothing.
And still getting paid.
Still getting paid for it, and going on holiday and still getting paid for it. Getting healthcare, private healthcare for my kids. Included, having a 7 times pension, all those little things you do take for granted, and when they're gone, you realise what big things they actually are in your life as you get older as well.
The value of those benefits,
So there's definitely times in the last. I mean, we've been at Vino Vero for nearly, just over 3 years, 3 years 4 months.
Yep.
There's not been any times where I've regretted doing it at all. But there's definitely times where I think the effort you put into it and the work you do to get the business where it is, and the financial return you get from that, the disparity is pretty huge.
Has it changed your relationship with wine? Do you still love it? Would you still claim you're passionate about wine?
100%, yeah. Yeah. Even more so, but I drink far less than I used to, because I have to drink. Because we test every wine before it hits the shelves. Yeah. So we try a lot of wine. Yeah. So
it's not the healthiest lifestyle if you're actually drinking all of it.
No, exactly. Yeah. if you're not spitting through it, you'll be in trouble. 100%. That's where that old image of people who drink wine, big red noses. Yeah. Doesn't happen anymore. Yeah. So you're still as into it, if not more, than when you started. Yeah, 100%. It's one of those things I love learning. So And in wine, you literally, it's a constant learning curve. There's always new things coming out. And what I know about wine is probably, it's tiny compared to all these masters of wine. And all those guys are still learning because there's new things coming out. There's new great varieties being recovered. There's different ways of making wine. There's different methods involved. It's just one of those things that's always evolving. So that ability to continually learn in the profession is really important, and that's definitely what we have in the wine industry. Yeah,
I think it's just an interesting point because I think there's a lot of people out there that tell people almost recklessly to follow their passion and turn it into a career. It's not going to work for everyone. I think it's great if you can do it. It's kind of a privileged position to be in for a lot of people if they can take something they're passionate about and turn it into a money-making enterprise.
Yeah.
But I always wonder, for the people that do manage it, does it detract anything? But from what you're saying, it hasn't.
For me, it hasn't. I mean, there's people who have lots of passions. I've had multiple passions, and some of that I wouldn't want to turn into a career. I mean, I've tried different bits, and when I got to the point where I knew I wanted to get out of insurance, I was watching a lot of Gary Vaynerchuk and stuff. And him saying, just try stuff, just find out what your passions are, try them. Because even if that's your passion, it might not be a passion you want to pursue as an actual...
Or commoditise, productise, whatever,
100%. So that's the whole route that I took, was trying stuff that I was into and seeing what worked. And if nothing worked, then I knew that I'd at least tried.
Yeah.
But yeah, finding something you're passionate about and turning that into a career is really rare. So I do feel very lucky that we've found something that works financially and that I really enjoy
get
doing.
A lot from.
Because I remember some days where I'd literally dread, like Sunday evenings, I'd be like in bits. So yeah, having something where you wake up and you actually really look forward to going in and like still get, if we get a new wine in or we get an allocation of rare wines, I literally had like 2 boxes arrive this week and I've been in the shop today. It's like a kid at a sweet shop, like
that's awesome,
like literally
to hear.
buzzing that there's new wines coming that I've never tried before, and we've got allocation of rare wines and stuff. It's good.
There's so much to be said for going out and doing something on your own, whether you're passionate about it or not. Like I'm not passionate about recruitment, I can tell you that much, but the autonomy and the freedom, the flexibility I get from running my own thing, I don't get that Sunday dread anymore. And at the times I do, I realise I have to change something about what I'm doing. Unfortunately, I've got all the freedom in the world to make those changes. I think when you've got managers and directors, and like you would have in the industry that you're operating in, you just have the lack of control. And I think that's what can lead to those,
a big thing,
that dread. That's those, I call them Sunday scaries whenever I put posts on LinkedIn. You know, it's that feeling like, shit, I need to go to work tomorrow.
Yeah. Did you have that when you worked for an agent?
100%, yeah. I mean, I felt like that for a good 18 months before I actually left. And I left without having made the decision that I was going to set up on my own. I just literally got into work one day and thought, I cannot be this miserable anymore. And my son was approaching a year old, and I was just, even when I was with him, I wasn't there. Just wasn't, I wasn't mindful, wasn't present. And the minute I made the shift, don't get me wrong, there are stressful days and there are times where you could argue I'm less present because I'm so, I don't know, my mind's everywhere because I'm focused on something going on with a business, but it's my stress. It's not anyone else having a go at me. It's my own stuff. So.
Yeah. And that was one of the, I think, naive parts I had about running a business, was that I saw Vino Vero, I saw a shop that was open from like 11 to 6.
That's going to be it.
Like, that's good. Right, I'll go to the gym in the morning, I can meet friends for a coffee and stuff.
Yeah.
But that 11 to 6 period is like the smallest part of what you do.
Yeah.
I say most nights I'm doing some sort of work, most mornings, and obviously doing some consulting work as well. At times it's really hard to juggle stuff, but that's that element of naivety that I had about the whole running a business. You don't think about invoicing, you don't think about payroll, you don't think about, like last night was in the shop, also wasn't supposed to be working, but I was in there trying new dishes for a new menu and stuff. So all those little things that you don't see from the outside, that you don't realise are happening, but
then you find out, pardon the expression, but you find out how the sausage is made, basically, don't you? You sort of look under the surface, you're like, shit, this is a lot more.
There's a lot involved in running a business that people don't see. So when like people get pissed off that we haven't responded to an email within 3 minutes and stuff, it's like people don't realise
it's a tiny part of what we do.
That's you're lucky I've even read it, let alone responded to it. It's weird.
Talking about then the side that people don't see, you mentioned Holly, your wife, earlier. What is it like working with Holly? Or was it like, again, I think a lot of people that may be thinking about going down that route of having their wife or their spouse, their partner as a business partner. I don't know how much you want to share, but what's that like?
For me, it's great. Yeah. She might answer differently.
Well, I was going to ask that question as well. I was going to ask, what if you asked Holly what's the most challenging thing to work about you? What do you think? Work with you? What do you think she'd say?
I'm a miserable prick.
At least you're being honest about it. Yeah. Has there been tensions? I'd assume there's tensions like there are in any relationship, but do you feel like it's magnified when you're running a business together?
I don't think so. No. I mean, she does a lot for the business and a lot of the behind the scenes stuff that people don't see. She does an incredible amount of like different things like payroll and
we were saying like more the
invoicing and
sort of the operational back office side is a lot of that's propped
operational side. Yeah. I mean, things like at Christmas we get a lot of corporate orders, and she's a machine, like because she was a PA for many years, so she worked at really big companies being PA for quite senior management level people. So her organisation level skills are like off the charts, and mine are like the opposite. So
you balance
for us,
out.
it works out really well.
Yeah.
So I can like really focus on the wine side of the business, and because she's like super organised, and the balance is there for us.
Yeah,
I mean,
good.
I think it depends on the people you've got in that relationship and how it would work. For us, it works really well.
Yeah.
And I literally couldn't. If I didn't have her support and doing that bit for me, I would literally be non-stop. I wouldn't have time for consultancy work. I'd be non-stop doing various bits. So I mean, all the accountancy stuff you have to do and all the allocations, and that's a massive job. VAT returns, and we've got some really good accountants that help massively. So yeah, we use KCA accountants in Lunacy, and they're just epic.
Yeah.
And that's really important when you're running a business, getting good accountants.
It's advice I've given to a lot of people that ask me about
massive
advice, and
it's massive. And when you see that amount coming out of your account every month, it's not a nice amount to see. I mean, it's never huge anyway. But when you think about what you could be doing with the money you pay for these people, but in reality, in the long run, what they do for you in terms of saving you time. Effort. It's massive.
Yeah.
So yeah, for us it works really well. But yeah, I dread to think how I'd be if I had to do all of it, because
it's a question I ask a lot of people that I've interviewed that are part of a partnership and are whether they're in a relationship or just business partners. I think the common theme is that one person has a particular strength that the other person doesn't have, so it balances out. If you're great at the same things, then you completely, so I'd argue Sam and Ed from the local merchants that are coming in, they've both got very different sets of skills, which holistically together make them a perfect pairing.
Yeah.
I think that's what you see with successful business partners. They level out to be a really good mix. Yeah. So that's really good to hear that's the case
100%.
with Holly, because it helps when it's your wife as well.
Massively, massively.
We talked about the fact you're a dad. It sounds like now, running Vino Vero, you've got a much better balance,
100%.
Work and life, and being a parent, being present, than you did when you were working insurance.
Yeah.
Do you have to be conscious about how you balance it, or does it just work out? Or do you have to put things in place to know you're spending time with your children, to know you're doing stuff and being present? Do you think about it that much?
Definitely, yeah. I think for us it just seems to work. I mean, I don't spend a lot of time in the shop itself, so...
But you've got an amazing... your employees are amazing. Every time I go in, there's one particular guy. Is it Ollie?
Ollie, yeah.
Ollie is one of the best people to have front of house in that shop. He's incredible.
He's immense.
If you've been in Vino Vero, you know Ollie. Long beard, tash.
Yeah.
One of the most energetic communicators I've ever known.
Yeah.
I know it's not just Ollie, but he tends to be there when I am.
Yeah.
So you've got some great front of house people.
We inherited a great team. We've added to the team. So for me, I never wanted to be in a shop full time. Right. That was never the aim.
Yep.
Running a wine business was always what I wanted to do, and Vino Vero was part of that. So when we looked at doing something, it was always, here's our 5-year plan. This is a business. It's not a shop. So there's going to be lots of different elements.
Shop's an aspect of it.
The shop's just part of it. And then there's lots of other things that I want to do around wine. So importing was the big one. So importing wine from Europe, mainly Spain.
When did you introduce that? Because obviously Vino Vero imports is a big thing now.
Yeah, so Sam and Charlie did a bit of importing. So we had some existing relationships that they set up. We didn't really develop on those because we just sort of left, because COVID happened. It sort of died off a little bit anyway. We didn't really want to pick up any imports from what they were looking at. Again, start our own thing. And I had a few friends and contacts who made wine in Spain anyway. But importing direct was a really big thing, really big part of our 5-year plan. So we started doing that, must have been 21, late 21. And I have some friends in northern Spain that make some wine. And they'd just ended ways with their importer who's based up in Edinburgh. I asked if I could bring some wine over, and then they said yes. And then it sort of spiraled from there again, another spiral out of control. And now we've got like 15 wineries that we import direct.
Amazing. Wow.
And we've probably added another 2 or 3 this year as well.
So that doesn't necessarily drag you into the shop. So talking about that balance again of being on premises.
Of being a dad and running a business is a lot easier because I have that team. We have the team at Vino Vero where I don't need to be there that often. So I do maybe 2 shifts a week. Right. Only more if Ollie's on holiday. But yeah, so I do maybe 14 hours a week in the shop. So not a lot. It's usually one Tuesday and one weekend. Yeah, nice. And to have a level of trust in the team where I can just not turn up for 6 days and be completely happy that everything works correctly and there's no issues is a massive thing for us.
How secure that must make you feel? Because I think that's one of the biggest worries for people managing other people is if you don't trust.
There's a level of trust in not just in terms of like people taking money or stock or stuff, because I've seen that in other businesses. But we trust every single person in that team, like with personal and business related stuff. It's not like we trust them to be in the shop on their own. I'd trust them with anything, like looking after the kids, anything. They're all incredible people. We're really lucky to have a team like we do. We all get on really well. Yeah. It's not, we don't dread working with any individual in the shop, like if we're on shift and in the night with them. We're really lucky. And that, I mean, we talking about developing the business and growing outside of Essex and raising our profile outside of Essex and stuff, and because we were awarded 41st best independent wine shop this year.
I saw this, congratulations. That's amazing.
All down to those guys, really, because the level of customer service that people experience in that shop, it's why if you look at TripAdvisor, if you look at Google reviews, if you look at all these aspects of reviewing experiences in our shop, it's all like 4.95 stars because of those people.
Well, every time I've been in to Vino Vero, and I think this was a quality that Sam and Charlie had when they were running it, you felt like you were the only person in there. Yeah. And it could be 3 or 4 people browsing the shelves, and even if that was the case, it's something as small as saying, I'll be with you in a moment. That doesn't happen nearly as much anymore. Especially when you're in a small shop. Feeling ignored or not feeling addressed is like, you'll notice that. It's glaringly obvious, but... Yeah, you walk into Vino Vero, for anyone that hasn't, I would highly recommend you do it, and you will feel like the only person in there. And you'll walk out knowing something you didn't, whether you like it or not, you will walk out knowing something about the bottle of wine, the provenance of it, the history behind it, the history of the vineyard. It is an experience, I would say, a really positive one.
Yeah, you can't really pop in for a quick...
No, I mean, you can, but I would say give yourself 10 minutes, because it's going to be an experience.
But that's the main area where we can add value, because... I mean, there's lots of wine shops in Lee. There's obviously Majestic and South End. There's all these other wine businesses, but we have 4 members of the team qualified up to level 3 WCT. Yeah, nice. That's rare in London, let alone Leigh-on-Sea in a small town outside of London, Essex. Like, to have 4 members of staff who are fully trained up to level 3 is massive for us. Yeah. So we're very lucky, and where we add value is talking about and understanding where this wine comes from. Yep. It's not just a bottle of wine for us. It's everything. There's history behind it. There's a family behind it. people really want to understand where the products come from.
Yeah, the source of stuff, the provenance of it, the sustainability aspect of it as well.
It's massive, yeah. So the people have been thinking about organic food for years and years and how that impacts their bodies and stuff. But people are now realising that should extend to what you're drinking as well. And when we talk about what is added to wine and subtracted from wine in big commercial wineries compared to all the wines that we offer, which is essentially fermented grape juice, nothing added, nothing taken away, that's becoming a really important thing for people, understanding A, what's in the wine, and B, who made it. They want to know the family that made it, if they had a dog or a cat or whatever, all those little things that matter. And the fact that we import a lot of them, we go to these wineries, we know the families really well, we speak constantly, we're visiting them all the time.
I think it's storytelling, isn't it? We buy 100%. Into that. We buy into storytelling, and that's what you get when you go in and speak to any of the staff. You'll get a story behind it and the history of it.
Yeah. So that allows me to not spend as much time there, and allows me to build the import company, do some contract work in the city if I want to, and then obviously, most importantly, spend time with the family.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I was going to ask you if you've got any advice for any sort of parent, I don't know if it's the right title, I'm just going to say it, parent entrepreneurs. So people that are maybe thinking about diving in and setting up a business, but they've got a young family and are worried about getting that balance right. Is there a piece of advice that you can share, or is it just a case of being mindful about getting that balance? Because I think there's a sacrifice. We all have to sacrifice something in pursuit of something we're passionate about.
Yeah.
Or we can't all have flexibility without sacrificing something. Can't have everything without giving nothing.
Yeah.
Any advice you can give?
I think if you're whatever job you do, if I was still in insurance, if I was working at Vino Vero, there's always an element of sacrifice to what you have to do with your family. It's always going to happen. So if you've got a passion about something, you might as well sacrifice that time and that relationship by doing something you actually enjoy. There's never one, unless you're a millionaire, there's never one scenario that allows you to be with a family full time and spend a lot more time with them. You're going to need to work more often than not. So everyone's going to be completely different. Every scenario is different. So you can only go by your gut feeling things. And if there's that little niggle there that makes you want to do something else, then you generally have to go for it. But it's all about, for me, it was all about finding a balance and doing it gradually. It's never going to be a big leap for me because I was in a different position. I had to do it gradually, make sure that I was doing it at the right time, making sure there wasn't a negative impact on my family and my own personal health as well. So it's really subjective, but I'd say get a good accountant.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Get support from your family. You need buy-in from them and support. And if you've got that niggle, then you just need to do something about it.
So many people have given that advice, and they always almost say it and understand then the privilege that you have from saying, if you get a niggle, do something about it.
Yeah.
But it's true, because most people that I have on have done that. They've pursued it and it's worked out. It can work out. And it's all the cliche quotes and advice that you get, which is all around, would you rather regret doing something or regret sat there being never having tried it?
Yeah.
And it sounds kind of glib, and it sounds like, well, yeah, of course you'd say that because it's worked out for you guys. But there is some sense behind it.
100%, yeah.
I think I really like what you're saying as well. If you're going to sacrifice time with your family, let it be for something you're passionate about. Because then hopefully what you'll have is energy that you're taking from work rather than giving it to a big employer, making money for someone else and going home and being miserable. Because
that was the feeling I had in the first lockdown. I was literally locked in a room in my house, working, literally going up there, like even in lockdown, I was working 7 till 7 basically, but I was in a room on my own constantly working. And I was like, what the fuck, where's the fucking point of this? What am I doing? What am I doing? And then the thought of going back to that old way of like getting the train to London now every day seems so alien to me. It doesn't make sense at all. Why would you waste like 3 hours? I live in Shoebury, so it's an hour and 5-10 minutes on the train, 10-minute walk to the station, 10-minute walk the other end.
Yeah.
That's over 3 hours of your day spent on the train.
Time, money, mental capacity,
$4 grand a
everything.
year for that.
Yeah.
What's the point?
Yeah, and that will resonate with a lot of people now, especially with what I'm seeing in the corporate world. This huge drive for people to go back into the office.
Yeah,
everyone's harping on about it all the time. All right, Jamie, I've got this running theme, as I mentioned earlier on when we were having the conversation, about most people that are coming in. Well, everyone in season 2, all the guests I'm having in are either entrepreneurs, business owners or creatives based in and around Leigh-on-Sea and Southend. You've named a few people that are going to be guests on the podcast.
Yeah.
Do you think there's anything... I mean, I'm always amazed by the number of independents on Lee Broadway, Lee Road and those surrounding areas. Is there, am I mad, or is there something about this area that draws people to it?
I had this conversation a few times. I don't understand it at all. It's just the town in Essex. It doesn't make any sense to have this many...
But do you think there is a high number? It feels like there's a high number of independents and entrepreneurs and business owners in this little pocket of Essex.
Yeah, I do. Lee's a weird one for me. It's quite a frustrating place.
Yeah, I'd agree.
But it's just this little hotbed of like really cool people that are really good at what they do. I mean, it talks about the guys on our little strip of shops, and when you look at what they're doing for their little industry, they're like, for me, they're doing what we do in wine. They're so obsessed with what they do and making the best things available in that. So look at Andy's coffee shop. If you look at the guys at the end, they've been out in Milan and Florence the last couple of weeks buying stuff. Like they're going at source. Andy's going to London all the time to train coffee and working out what's the best. They're obsessed with finding the best stuff and unique stuff, which is really rare. But then I don't know. Lee for me is just a weird one.
Yeah,
and some elements it's amazing. I think other stuff it just needs a lot of work. It has this whole perception of being Shoreditch-on-Sea, but I just don't see that at all.
I haven't heard it being called Shoreditch-on-Sea. There are definitely some crossovers. There's definitely some similarities there. But yeah, I think, I mean, and I like the fact you've kind of shone a light. It's not all positive. Like this pocket isn't all positive around here. There's a lot of, I think it can be quite superficial, can be a bit skin deep in areas. But I do think there is, what I love about it is the people going out and doing things for themselves and punching above their weight a lot of the time.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many places that are really focused on like the products and stuff, where I think you sometimes get lost in the glossiness of image,
the Instagram-ness.
Yeah, well, we look at people like Emma and James at Hugo's and stuff, what they're doing with pizza, and how they're focusing on the products and how they're putting Instagram posts up about what tomatoes they use or what flour they use, because those details matter. Yeah. But I think a lot of businesses don't do that, and they're just more concerned with looking good on Instagram rather than focusing on what products they're selling. And there's just so many people like Pasta Nostra and people that are really focused on higher quality produce rather than it looking good on Instagram and stuff.
And you can literally, I don't think you can walk more than 20, 30 feet before you've hit another independent that have got some sort of focus on the product. And hopefully by the end of all the conversations I have, I've got some sort of answer that groups all of this together.
Yeah, why it all sort of ends up in Lee, I just don't know.
So strange, isn't it?
Yeah.
Cool. All right, Jamie. Well, look, I've got one more question. It is the closing tradition on the podcast, if that's all right. I won't put you on the spot, and you might have listened to episodes or not, but my closing tradition is that you get a question from my mum. My mum plays quite a big part of all my marketing when I do recruitment. Don't ask me why. She's just cannon fodder for me most of the time.
Is this a bespoke question for me, or is it just
No, bespoke for you.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And I can only apologise for what she's going to ask. I don't listen to the voice note. I just have it, comes to the phone, and then I play it.
Is it a discount request?
Should have mentioned that to her. Let me have a look. Right, I'll get it up. So yeah, I'll apologise in advance. I'll play it down the speaker so that my producer Tom can hear it. But
hi Jamie, what do you do?
What do I do?
What do you do? Yeah. Leave you on that cliffhanger. Right, let's go.
If you get a customer who comes in and wants to taste too many wines, shall we say, and ends up a little bit inebriated, Thanks.
Thanks, Mum. Appreciate that
Excellent.
one. Yeah. It says Lisa, if you wanted to address your answer to Lisa.
Lisa.
Has that ever happened?
It hasn't actually.
Oh, nice. You're
It
doing
hasn't.
well.
Yeah, we always, because we've got bar area, we always have at least like 15 to 18 bottles open. So we sometimes do give out little samples.
But no one's taken a piss.
No one's gone mad. No,
Right.
no. We're quite lucky.
I think Mum's probably talking about her own experience.
Yeah,
there,
clearly.
maybe. Yeah.
No, we've been alright actually. We don't tend to get many drunk people.
It's the clientele that you're aiming for, isn't it? Really. You want a
Yeah.
more refined drinking experience. Then.
Well, that's why we're so expensive. Yeah, we price ourselves out the market, really. But yeah, I think that people can only afford one glass of wine in our shop. So.
Oh, well, it's all worth it, mate. It's all worth it.
No, we're quite lucky. So yeah, we do a few samples, and we tend to do like free pour Fridays and stuff.
Yeah, nice.
Give out some free bits, but never to the point where we have to carry people out.
No one's sort of falling out the door.
Not yet.
Well, there you go, Mum. Stop
know.
putting your own personal experience into the questions, please. Jamie, it's been really lovely having you
thanks
in,
for
mate.
having us.
It's been a
Good.
really lovely conversation, and I can't wait to get it out there. Thank you.
No, thanks for having us.
Cheers, man.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks for listening to Jobsworth. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to like and subscribe. You can stay connected by following me on LinkedIn for more insights on the world of work, behind the scenes content, and updates on upcoming episodes.